This is Leader Time by FedNet, your podcast source for remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor during the 119th Congress. On May 14th, Thune briefly addressed the death of former Missouri Senator Kit Bond before remarks on immigration enforcement. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, before I begin my remarks today, I want to say a word about our former colleague, Christopher Kit Bond, who passed away yesterday at the age of 86. Kit Bond dedicated his life to serving the people of Missouri. After serving as state auditor, he became Missouri's youngest governor at the age of 33. Missourians sent him to the U.S. Senate in 1986, and he served there for 24 years. His interests were many, from literacy and housing to trade with Southeast Asia. And those of us who knew him remember his kindness, his great care for people, and his love for this institution. Today I remember Kit for his life, for his service, and my prayers are with his wife Linda and his son Sam. Mr. President, on Monday, Customs and Border Protection released its monthly update for April. And I want to read a line from that release, and I quote, "Driven by the administration's decisive and effective immigration enforcement, our front lines continue to see overwhelming improvements when it comes to securing our border," end quote. In April, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, encountered just 12,035 illegal immigrants trying to cross our southern border. In the entire month, Mr. President. March saw just 11,019. February, 11,708. Mr. President, during the Biden administration, there were single days that saw those kinds of numbers. And that's not the only good news. CBP also reported an increase in drug seizures in April. And as acting CBP Commissioner Pete Flores says, and I quote, "For the first time in years, more agents are back in the field, patrolling territories that CBP didn't have the bandwidth or the manpower to oversee just 6 months ago," end quote. Mr. President, I have to say it's amazing what new leadership can do. In seemingly no time at all, the Trump administration has restored operational control at the border. Border Patrol agents are no longer processing thousands of illegal immigrants a day. They're out in the field, apprehending illegal border crossers, seizing drugs, and disrupting human and drug smuggling networks. Meanwhile, ICE agents and other law enforcement officers are busy removing criminal illegal immigrants who have taken up residence in our country. Mr. President, not long ago, the story was much different. During the Biden administration, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants were crossing the southern border in a single month, including a concerning number of known gotaways. And the Biden administration abused the parole and asylum systems to wave illegal immigrants into the United States. As a result, communities across the country were overwhelmed by the influx. And valuable resources had to be used to process and transport these migrants. Resources that could have gone toward securing the border, arresting criminals, and stopping the flow of illegal drugs. Mr. President, I'm grateful at the progress that's been made so quickly by President Trump and his administration. Our country is safer today than it was just a few months ago. And we want to ensure that President Trump and his administration and future administrations have the resources they need for this success to continue. That's why the reconciliation bill that we'll take up will make a generational investment in border security. That means money to finish the border wall. It means technology to help border agents stop illegal immigrants and drugs from entering our country in the first place. It means additional Border Patrol agents on the front lines, more immigration and customs enforcement agents to carry out removals, more detention capacity and transportation resources to facilitate deportations, and certainty for the President's team that it will have the resources it needs to execute its mission for the entirety of the Trump administration. Mr. President, Republicans don't just want to turn the page on the border crisis of the Biden years. We want to close the book. And that's what this bill will help do. Democrats may not support our efforts. Even now, I'm not sure border security really even registers on their priority list. But the American people, Mr. President, support border security, and we intend to deliver it. We are committed to ensuring that the success we've seen so far can continue long into the future for the men and women on the front lines and for the safety and security of the American people.
Schumer spoke at length about budget reconciliation, President Trump and alleged contracting corruption, Trump's visit to the Middle East, and more.
Now, Mr. President, there's really nothing to celebrate about Republicans' quote, big, beautiful bill, unless you're a billionaire or an oil company. But for everyone else, this so-called big, beautiful bill is in fact nothing more than a big, fat grift, taking money away from people, raising costs on average Americans, all to help the billionaires. And today I want to talk about how Republicans' big grift is an assault on America's clean energy, the bill that was just released by the Energy and Commerce Committee, or at least that part of it. Now, Donald Trump and Republicans claim to want American energy dominance. But from the moment he became president, they've been hell-bent on killing the clean energy investments America needs to meet the energy needs of tomorrow. They say they want more energy, and then they cut off the cheapest, quickest, most available form of energy for ideological and grift reasons. In a moment, I'll talk about the awful Republican bill that just came out of committee. But first, I want to talk about a specific project. Donald Trump's clean energy vendetta is wreaking particular havoc on New York's offshore wind industry. And it's a warning to the rest of America how he will deal with clean energy projects. What's happened here is utterly despicable, amazing, and awful. A few weeks ago, the Trump administration suddenly and without explanation issued a stop work order on New York's Empire Wind Farm, a $7 billion project already underway by the company Equinor. This is not some project in the planning stages. No. This was approved years ago. $3-4 billion has been put into developing the offshore windmills that will provide energy for hundreds of thousands of homes, clean energy, cheap energy. And all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, the Secretary of Interior says you must stop the project because the environmental impact statement was rushed. The company asks why. And the Interior Secretary says, well, there's a report that NOAA has issued, that's in the Commerce Department, that says it, that says this was rushed and inadequate in terms of the environmental impact. So the company I have asked repeatedly for the Commerce Department to show us what the reasoning is, which we think there's none. To show us the specifics of why they halted this project out of the clear blue, a project employing hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people, a project where there are boats, I think close to 50 of them, right offshore, actually building these offshore wind turbines. Now it's stopped, but there is no explanation. This is like a dictatorship. No due process, no explanation. Out of the blue, just as billions have already been spent, and just as construction is underway off the coast, just as 30% of the project is built, Donald Trump and Howard Lutnick say halt. It's outrageous. Give us a reason, says the company. We've invested billions here in America. They're a Norwegian company, one of the largest offshore wind companies in the world. They're well qualified. They're well known. They have a good history. Give us a reason. Show us what's wrong with the approval previously, 2-3 years ago, of the environmental statement. And there's silence. No answer. No reason. And the project is now on hold. All the boats are out there. The workers are out there. No explanation has been given, nor has Equinor been given any opportunity to discuss and address potential problems. This is not how businesses operate. Our friends on the other side like to talk about running government more like a business. Well, this is just outrageous. And every week that Empire Wind sits idle, it costs $50 million. So now the project may die altogether. Why? We know why. Donald Trump hates offshore wind. He hates offshore wind because supposedly years ago they built a wind farm off the coast of his Scotland golf course. He fought to kill it, he lost. So now he's taking it out on all offshore wind to the detriment of the American energy needs in a way that is it's like a dictatorship. Stop, they say. We're not giving you a reason. It's outrageous. It's malicious and intentional sabotage. It's an outright attack on New York jobs, on New York workers. And it's happening for no other reason than partisan ideology and political sociopathy. Partisan ideology because the right-wing oil and gas barons hate clean energy, even though it's the cheapest way to reduce our energy needs. And political sociopathy because Donald Trump hates offshore wind because he didn't like windmills off his golf course in Scotland. The Trump administration must at least give an explanation so the company can answer why they should continue with the project. I call on Secretary Lutnick to immediately release the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration report that was used as justification to halt work on the Empire Wind project. New Yorkers, Americans, the company which invests heavily in America deserve to know why halt this project. What's the deal? What's the justification? And what's the plan to get the jobs back on track? These are good jobs, good-paying jobs. If everything's on the level, the administration should not fear being transparent with Equinor. What's the answer? How can they shut the project down and give no explanation? We've called the Secretary of Interior. He says it's up to Lutnick and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They're the ones who say that this was approved too quickly, even though it's been working with no problems for years. And work is ongoing and the construction is ongoing. And by the way, to everyone investing in America, whether you're an American company or not, this should be a shot across the bow, a warning of what this administration can do. Out of the clear blue, just say stop. No explanation, no reason, no ands, ifs, or buts. Our business community should be outraged about how this business is being treated. Not just the energy business. They can do this anywhere. We need answers, and at the very minimum, the explanation as why they ordered this project stopped, which I imagine is very flimsy and came from Donald Trump's sociopathy because he hates offshore wind because of what they did. He didn't like those windmills off the golf course in Scotland. It's well known that's why he hates offshore wind. So what happened with Equinor is just a disgusting travesty that must be reversed. It is so outrageously unfair, malicious, and counterproductive for America's energy needs. Now, let me go talk to the broader issue, the Republican bill that just came out of committee on the House side. What's happening with Equinor is frankly part of a larger pattern of clean energy destruction. Clean energy destruction from Donald Trump and Republicans. Before our very eyes, Republicans want to kill American clean energy in its tracks. They want to use their so-called one big beautiful bill to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. Most of all, they want to cut taxes for the ultra-rich and big corporations and make Americans pay for it with higher energy costs by rendering unusable the wind and solar tax breaks that were put into the legislation in the IRA. And what do American people need to know? Republicans are raising taxes on Americans' electricity. One independent study, it's raising costs on Americans' electricity as well. One independent study shows families and businesses will see their electricity bills go up by 10% as soon as next year. Hear that, America? This ideological craziness that we shouldn't have wind and solar. Some people don't think, there are some, I guess, who feel we shouldn't have coal, oil, and natural gas. But actually, if we're going to meet America's energy needs, we need clean energy. It's the only way to go, even if you're for natural gas and oil to be used, even though those are far less now efficient and productive than solar and wind energy. But to do this, to meet the ideological thirst to shut this problem, to shut this process down, to shut clean energy down, they're going to raise your electric bills, Mr. and Mrs. America, all Americans, as much as 10% by next year. States like Kansas, Missouri, and South Carolina could see prices rise by 15%. Wyoming, I saw my friend from Wyoming in the back there, could see nearly a 30% increase in energy costs, hundreds of dollars a year extra for families and businesses, for a family or small business already dealing with inflation and a trade war. An extra 10% in costs could mean the difference between staying open and shutting down. If Republicans repeal the IRA, a generation of American manufacturing jobs will also be an immediate risk, most of them in red states, although they'll be in red states and blue states alike. The IRA has already spurred more than $270 billion in clean energy investment. And that's in addition to the $100 billion in domestic manufacturing to build these projects right here at home. All of this will be shut down if the House Republican bill passes the House and passes the Senate and is signed into law. Here's something for my Republican colleagues to think about. 9 of the 10 top congressional districts receiving manufacturing investment from the IRA are Republican districts. Those investments are over $5 billion each. For a party that claims to be pro-business, what they're doing with Equinor is so anti-business and so disruptive of business decision-making. And what they're doing here is just the same. Just the same. The restrictions they put in the bill are such that if a project, as I understand it, if a project is not completed by 2028, it loses all its credits, which means project after project after project, clean energy projects for wind and solar, and others will be shut down. So I have a message to the House Republicans in the Ways and Means Committee who just passed the bill on a strict party line vote. To approve these cuts is to approve a death sentence for energy and manufacturing jobs for your communities. These investments include a $700 million battery manufacturing plant in Fort Worth, Texas, the more than $5 billion in battery manufacturing at new and existing facilities in Fayette County, Ohio, or multiple solar manufacturing facilities in the Phoenix metro area of Arizona. And mark my words, if Republicans gut the IRA, it would be a gift to the Chinese Communist Party. Jobs that should belong in America will go to cities like Chengdu, China, because China's not cutting back on clean energy. No way. They're going to get way ahead of us on this industry like they did on electric cars. And Americans will pay the price in higher energy costs, in fewer jobs, and in losing the leadership on another industry to China. But this one didn't have to happen. The RA did a great job at getting America moving and ahead of China, and now they're taking it away. So putting it all together, the Republican bill, what does it mean for the middle class? Higher electricity bills, hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs erased around the country, rising insurance premiums, particularly on states by the water, Florida, Texas, Mississippi, South Carolina. Their insurance premiums are going up now because we don't have enough clean energy and there's too much climate change with tornadoes and hurricanes and floods and Lord what else. And so insurers, they don't want to insure anymore. They want to insure at such high prices that people can't sell their homes in those states and across the country. And people, young people who want to buy a home can't because the insurance is too high. And it's too high because we don't have enough clean energy and they're cutting it off. So these are all terrible prices to pay just to lower taxes for the ultra-rich, just to satisfy the ideological thirst of oil and gas and coal barons who hate clean energy because they know it's the future and they know they are not the future. The broken Republican agenda is a political loser. Americans are learning that, whether it's on Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid or veterans benefits or housing. And certainly it is here on clean energy, which has the broad support of the American people, Democrat and Republican alike. So the warning signs, my Republican friends, are flashing. Last night in Omaha, Nebraska, a 3-term Republican mayor was voted out of office. The Washington Post described how, quote, disquiet over Trump's agenda produced a surge of Democratic energy, unquote. And so the 3-term Republican mayor lost to a Democratic candidate. People don't like what Republicans are doing. It's energizing people, not just Democrats, but people across the board to participate more and more in elections of all kinds. And here in Congress, Republicans are pushing forward on an agenda that will make their political fortunes all the more ominous. On Donald Trump's Middle East trip, there's so much going on today. Donald Trump's trip to the Middle East seems less than a presidential visit and more like a personal business venture. Less like a presidential visit and more like a personal business venture. Since Donald Trump became president, nobody seems to have benefited more from Middle East deals than Donald Trump himself. Golf courses by the beach, hotel openings in Dubai, billions in investments toward Trump's stablecoins. All of that enriches Donald Trump. That's what American foreign policy is all about? To make a rich president richer? And then, of course, there's the matter of a $500 million private jet that Qatar wants to gift Donald Trump to use as Air Force One. On this Middle Eastern trip, who exactly is Donald Trump working for? The American people or for his own bottom line and the bottom line of the companies he brought on the tour? And until Attorney General Bondi, a former high-powered lobbyist for Qatar, explains why this robber baron deal was allowed to go through on the Qatar plane, I will not be complicit in the further polarization of DOJ and will hold all political DOJ nominees. Let me say that again. Until Attorney General Bondi, a former high-powered lobbyist for Qatar, explains why, resolves the issues of this robber baron deal for Qatar to gift to President Trump a $400 million airplane with huge security issues. Until they resolve those issues in a way that is satisfying to the American people in terms of security and in terms of fairness, I will not be complicit in the further polarization of the DOJ, and so I'm holding all political DOJ nominees. Now, some of our Republican colleagues, to their credit, have said they have concerns about the gutter deal. Well, how about showing it? How about showing some outrage? Republicans should join us in getting answers, or else they can expect this hold on nominees to persist. If this were done by a Democrat, you'd all be out here screaming. You know how bad it is. You know how bad it is. So speak up. Maybe that'll stop the president, because there's a real national security risk. We cannot let a foreign country, Air Force One, is the most complicated, sophisticated plane in the world by a lot, because it must protect a president when he or she is communicating, and in case there's a nefarious action against that plane, God forbid. And to let Qatar, in on those secrets, you'd have to dismantle the plane they gave us down to every screw and every ratchet to see if they put little devices in there. It is estimated it will end up costing more to make this gift, quote unquote gift, secure than it would to buy the new planes that are 2 years from Boeing that are 2 years, in 2 years will be available for delivery. There are laws on the books precisely designed to prevent the naked corruption of a foreign country paying for a luxury Air Force One. We should apply those laws, and that's why I'm deploying these holds. Americans deserve to know the answer to a basic question. Again, who is Donald Trump working for, the American people or himself? And finally, on the shooting anniversary, the anniversary of the shooting in Buffalo. 3 years ago today, 10 beautiful, innocent lives were cut short in a horrible, racist mass shooting at a Tops supermarket on Buffalo's east side. Buffalo's the city of good neighbors, and nowhere is that truer than on the east side. But in just 2 minutes, the community was forever changed. 10 of our grandparents, parents, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors went to the grocery store that day. It was a convening place, a meeting place, the Tops restaurant, the Tops supermarket was, and they never came home. I remember being in the community in the days and weeks after. I met a young boy, only a few years old. His father was out buying him a birthday cake at the grocery store, and he never came home. It rattles you to your core. The Buffalo community has done a lot of healing over the last 3 years, but the pain from the shooting still lingers to this day. After the shooting, I worked hand in hand with the families of those we lost in Buffalo to pass the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first gun safety legislation in 30 years. When I had authored the Brady Law, I was the author of that law, which did so much good and still does so much good 30 years before. Both sides came together, Democrats and Republicans. It was a good moment to expand background checks, crack down on gun traffickers, and invest in violence intervention programs to make our streets safer and make our communities safer. Passing this bill was a moment of significant progress in the fight against gun violence. We cannot turn back the clock on this progress we made in honor of those we lost. We have a long way to go and a lot of work to do to rid America of the gun violence epidemic. But the memories of those we lost in Buffalo 3 years ago today give me endless motivation to keep pushing. May God bless Buffalo. God bless all the families impacted by the tragedy 3 years ago today. May God bless America. I yield the floor.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe and tell your friends about us. This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited.